Hi, welcome back to Cozy Potato Games. My name is Dylan, and today we'll be talking about backstories and backgrounds for your character creation. This video applies to players and DMs, so pay attention. One of the largest differences between a TTRPG and a video game is the storytelling aspect. Even the best open world game you can think of still has some linear narrative you have to follow. Now, in D&D, you can follow a pre-written narrative written by the DM or from a published campaign. But those stories aren't set in stone or code. You're actively creating a story with your DM, and that story starts with your backstory. The rules for D&D and most other games like it include options called backgrounds. The name can vary, but the principle is the same. Who was your character before the start of this story? Where did they live? Questions like that will help flesh out your character. In this video, I'll go over the basics of what info you should have ready for your DM during or prior to the session 0. Let's start with choosing a background. You have a long list of options from things like sailors or soldiers, acolytes, sages, hermits, and the good old reliable generic folk hero. This is also a good opportunity to ask the DM if there are any custom backgrounds for this setting, or any guilds, organizations, or factions your character could be a part of. Trust me, your DM will be thrilled to include your character in something that's already built into the world. It makes plugging your character into a larger narrative much, much easier. The background gives you a general idea of what your character did before this adventure, your occupation, your lifestyle, and things like that. Each background has some starting equipment and extra skill proficiencies that can vary from game to game, but that's usually something like that. And it just gives you some mechanical incentive to include it on the character sheet. Each background also has a table of suggested personality traits. You can roll or choose your own, or just make something up. It's helpful for fleshing out your character and inspiring more details for your backstory. These tables include a bond, a person, or a place your character is connected to. They're all pretty vague usually, and that's by design. You may see something like, I'll do anything to protect the village where I grew up, or I owe everything to the monks who took me in when I was sick and wounded. Prompts like this can bring up interesting questions. Some of them are pretty basic, like, what's something you love about your village? What might be this threat that you have to protect them from? And for that monk example, what happened to you that would require that kind of aid? Work with your DM and your other players at session 0 to help answer some of these questions. Maybe the threat to the village for that one character could be the same thing that put the other guy in with the monks. Now all of a sudden, these vague prompts can become a commonality between two players, tying them together within the party, and possibly tying them to a larger narrative in the campaign. We haven't established yet what this threat is, and you don't necessarily need to right away. As long as the DM knows that something needs to be there, you're good to go. Bonus points if you guys can work out one character who might have one clue for what the threat is, and the other character has another clue. They can work together at the table in real time, fitting these pieces together with the rest of the party. Now you're well on your way to creating an interesting character and a fulfilling game experience. Now for the DMs, let's take this a step further. Let's say this threat is something like a pack of roving orcs or a conquering warlord expanding his territory. He's at the village, forcing the people to offer a tribute of grain and other supplies. But winter's approaching and their stores are running bare. The monks are aware of the situation and send for aid from the nearby kingdom, but the king might have his own slew of problems and can't spare the military force to protect that village. He sends an ambassador instead to negotiate a truce, hopefully encouraging the villagers and the orcs to work together, sharing the resources until spring. Perhaps someone else in the village is a little more desperate and takes matters into their own hands. They send word to a thieves' guild or assassins. They send someone to rob or kill the warlord. Problem solved. Do you see what we have here? Our original villager here could be a fighter. The guy who was in with the monks could be a newly trained cleric. The ambassador sent by the king could be a wizard, and then, of course, a rogue. The fighter and the cleric may have more personal stake in what's happening, and again, that commonality. But you've created a set of circumstances that can be used to bring this party together and even give them an opening adventure for your first session, just off a couple basic prompts from one player's background. Now back to the players. Let's talk through some basic do's and don'ts for writing your backstory. These are some of the main things I'm looking for as a DM when a player brings a new character into a session 0. Where did you come from? What's your class, and where did you receive your training, or how did you receive your powers? You don't need to detail the town you grew up in or list the names of every single family member and every person you've ever known, but I would like to see at least one or two NPCs that were influential to you. You should also give your character a goal. It can be something as specific as retrieving the fabled relic from X ruins over here. It can be something as generic as, I want to learn more magic. As long as you have some kind of goal, the DM can use that as incentive for you to travel with this group and go on these adventures. Like the example before, what is your character's bond? It can be an NPC, perhaps a family member or some mentor who taught you your class abilities. A bond can also simply be a devotion to a place or to an ideal. If your bond is something as simple as, I want to help people, that's still better than nothing. And finally, come up with a flaw for your character. What's their greatest fear? Could they be insecure, overconfident, perhaps like uneducated and naive? Are they a selfless hero on the outside, but somewhere deep down inside feel that they could solve all the world's problems if they were only allowed to rule in the way that they feel is right? No one wants their character to lose, but the best heroes have weaknesses that are challenged, and your ability to overcome your own weaknesses can often be the best part of your story. Now for some don'ts. Please don't write a 50-page backstory, something listing all the great deeds that you've already accomplished. The rare exception for that would be if you're starting a character above like level 5 and you need to justify all of those skills that you've already learned. Again, just a few key details is really all you need. Another thing, please don't kill all the NPCs in your backstory. Uncle Ben doesn't die until Peter Parker has already gotten his powers and begun his journey. Would the story really be as impactful if we just started on Peter going like, "Aw, man, I really miss my uncle that the audience has never met"? It sounds horrible, but I say don't kill your NPCs. That's the DM's job. If you have a dead loved one and your story is some kind of revenge quest, that's different. But don't let him suffer alone. Include another NPC, a friend, or someone else who is there to support you. You should include someone who is close to you who helps you begin your journey. Those edgy soul survivor stories are fine and you can do them, but in my experience, they can be hard to pull off. It can be hard to make a compelling character, and more importantly, a good team player, which is kind of central to this whole experience. Another thing is don't just give your character amnesia. I've seen it before and it can work, but this is a collaborative storytelling game. I think if you forfeit having a backstory for amnesia, you're basically forcing the DM to tell your story for you. The next one, if you're following along, is kind of obvious. It's don't make a character that doesn't have a flaw. It can be tempting to play the Mary Sue character, but I think you might get bored quickly. If you've ever had a game where you felt bored or disinterested with your character, think back on if you actually gave them any flaws or any quirks that weren't just being a perfect, a perfect hero with no weaknesses. Now, obviously, there are a lot of reasons that a game can go wrong and a lot of reasons you become bored with a character, but I'm willing to bet a lot of you out there are thinking back on some of your characters like, mhm, okay. It's okay. It's an easy mistake. It's one that I've made a couple of times, and I don't think it's something people do consciously. These games are our escape from reality, and sometimes we just want to pretend that we can be the perfect version of ourselves that doesn't do anything stupid ever. While we're on the subject, actually, I recommend thinking about your character's morals. You don't need to lay out everything that they believe in. Just try to think of at least one line that they won't cross, that one terrible deed that they would never do no matter what. And also related to that, please don't make any true pacifist, no kill rule characters. Obviously, murder bad, but this is a game focused on combat. If your character refuses to fight for any reason, even for a justifiable cause, you're basically ignoring one of the critical, central pillars of this game. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, please don't make murder hobo characters that kill everything and everyone. Basically, stabbing civilians, bad. Killing the giant dragon that's threatening to destroy the kingdom is good. Are we good? Do we understand the concept? All right. And finally, kind of goofy to say it like this, but don't not write a backstory. You don't need some deep, thought provoking story here to have fun. You don't need to detail the entire history of everything to make a good character. If it's just enough to get you through the first door of the first dungeon, then we can make up the rest as we go. And I think that's the point I've been dancing around this whole time. Ultimately, this is a game with a story that we're creating together, players and DMs. There is a balance here. If you write too much, then there's nothing left for your character to do. If you write too little, then there's nothing to build on. I've said it a couple times, but just lay out those key details. You can write a short narrative for your character if you like, but it's not at all required. The biggest thing to remember is that the story lies in the game you play, not your character's past. Thanks for watching. Like the video if you liked it. Comment your thoughts and some of your favorite backstories down below. And as always, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.